artificial intelligence is reshaping the world as we know it faster than we can keep up. Now, whether this is a blessing or curse is a question that regulators, organizations, and even AI leaders are currently grappling with.
It is easy to get excited about the benefits. Information and knowledge now at our fingertips. AI is fundamentally changing the way businesses operate, driving innovation and improving the lives of millions of people. But are we paying attention to the warnings from the very creators of this technology? Geoffrey Hinton, known as the godfather of AI, has said that not enough people are taking the risks of AI seriously. The ex-Google employee says that the technology he helped create is now getting increasingly scary.
So once these things are able to create sub-goals, them being very smart, I think they will quickly realize that if they got more control, they could realize their goals much more easily. And once they want to get control, things start looking bad for people. So if you're a skilled manipulator, and these things will be extremely skilled manipulators because they'll have learned from all the manipulations people ever did. So they'll be much better than a person at manipulating us. They'll be able to manipulate us into doing whatever they want. It'll be like you manipulating a 2-year-old. So they don't need to pull levers or press buttons. The idea of air gapping them and everything will be okay isn't going to work.
Like Hinton, AI experts are now raising the alarm that AI algorithms will soon reach a point of rapid self-improvement that threatens our ability to control them. Hinton believes that most tech companies understand these risks, but they don't act on them. However, back in 2023, more than 1,000 AI experts, researchers, and backers, including Elon Musk, the co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, and engineers from Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, and others signed an open letter calling for an immediate pause on the creation of AIs for at least 6 months, so the capabilities and dangers of systems such as OpenAI's ChatGPT model can be properly studied and mitigated. Here are some reasons why. The debate over how exactly most humans will fit into this AI-powered future is still ongoing. In fact, Bill Gates predicted that over the next decade, AI will dramatically transform the world of work, reshaping how humans contribute to the economy and changing the types of jobs that will exist. And social media has also shown us that algorithms can be programmed to reflect and replicate structural biases, which of course could lead to outcomes that are misleading or incorrect, a danger for individuals or companies that rely on their intelligence, and also for national security. Experts are also raising concerns that malicious individuals could connect the dots and combine information in ways that pose a threat, such as the creation of fabricated hyper-realistic digital media known as deep fakes. And on the global front, fragmented digital markets could mean less developed markets like Africa will lose competitive advantage. On the other hand, persuasive technologies are already leading to addiction and the manipulation of human behavior. As nations rush to win the AI race, regulators have still not figured out how to determine who is responsible for the damage caused by an AI-operated device or service. More recently, the environmental impact of AI has come to the fore. Activists believe that the energy consumption and resource use associated with training and also running AI systems could have significant environmental consequences. What worries most is the fact that regulators are still scrambling to create legislation that can catch up with AI's progress and also enforce the necessary checks and balances needed. And some are trying. Back in June 2024, the EU adopted the Artificial Intelligence Act. It is the world's first comprehensive legislation on the subject. They wanted to make sure that AI systems used in the region are safe and uphold fundamental rights. But its critics still think the act is a long way from having any meaningful impact on the sector. The reality is, it pretty much still remains unclear whether it's too late for stakeholders to ensure that the effects of powerful AI systems are positive and their risks will be manageable. Some believe that until people start taking these risks of artificial intelligence seriously, we just might be facing an existential threat. Uche Okoronkwa, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
All right, then, one last round of discussion on this topic. Dr. Uche Onyekpe is the founder and director of the African Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence, joining us live on the program tonight. Thank you for your time this evening, Dr. Onyekpe. So, should regulators have this approach in mind when LLMs are being deployed in the public sphere, that we only use open source models where we can understand how these programs arrived at the conclusions that they're spitting out based on the data that we gave them?
Thank you very much. I would say that transparency is key, especially when AI models, AI decisions impact people's lives. Using open source models means that experts and citizens can look under the hood, to understand how these decisions are made and hopefully help spot biases or any problems that are associated with these models. So it is important. So I would say trust is very important. It's not just about the tech, it's about trust. And we need to make sure that these models reflect the cultural and language diversity of the continent.
I saw something quite interesting from the AU commissioner in charge of AI and infrastructure and energy, and they're sort of folding AI into that, saying that 83% of AI funding for startups is going to just 4 countries, Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. But do we have any clarity on either at country or at regional levels exactly how much of that R&D funding is coming in from domestic sources, especially when it comes to testing, developing and deploying these LLMs?
I would say that there is a lot we don't know. A lot of the money for LLM projects come from many international tech giants and donors. I know that South Africa, and a few other countries have started their own innovation hubs, and the governments are just joining the conversation. But I would say that homegrown funding and investment is very patchy and small scale compared to many of these international funding and that we receive for LLM related projects.
That limits the agency that we have on the continent, doesn't it? Because if this funding is coming into the market, ostensibly we're going to be developing along the rails that the funders would prefer those projects and those LLMs to develop rather than the ones that are our priorities here in Africa.
Exactly. Yeah, I would definitely say so. As I mentioned earlier, Africa has a very diverse culture, diverse, languages, and this needs to be taken into account in the design and operation of this models. So, yes, many of these international giants have their own different objectives, and we need to make sure that we are putting ours at the forefront.
One last question for you, Dr. Onyekpe. What is, from your perspective, what's the one issue in the conversation around AI governance that you think is not getting enough attention, not just from policymakers, but also from users of these systems like you and I?
It still touches on what I've said earlier, language inequity. A lot of the large AI models are trained primarily on English or many of the other major global languages. And Africa's rich linguistic diversity is often ignored or excluded. And this sort of reinforces a lot of social cleavages that currently exist in many application areas, many public-facing tools like voice assistants tools or many educational-related tools. I remember having to work on a project sometime, and I decided to use generative AI to sort of create a budget. And unfortunately, the budget was done based on the realities of the US rather than the reality of the particular African country. So I think many of these models can be very inaccurate and produce bias that impacts the usefulness of the models for the continent. And I think that policymakers and companies should invest in the support of local languages and ensure that there is equitable model training.